What's up everybody? Before we start the review, don't forget to comment and subscribe. Thank you so much. So today, Ghostwire Tokyo. It's kinda interesting in original IP developed by the Tango Gameworks creators of The Evil Within and published by Bethesda. The same studio that brought incredibly popular game series like The Elder Scrolls and Fallout to the world. Those are certainly some big names to live up, and thankfully Ghostwire Tokyo manages to shrug off the weight of its predecessors without issue. What could have easily become yet another bloated open world full overloaded with meaningless side quests and collectibles actually manages to have a unique style and world-wide explanation, all without feeling overwhelming. While it might certainly seem like a horror game at first glance, with its spooky spirits and creepy enemy design, it doesn't really play like one. While the enemies and the story to give the game an overall creepy tone, it's more of an action RPG than anything else. There are certainly a few jump scares, from through enemies catching you off guard to freaky institutions and illusions taking over the screen as you walk down the hallway. But compared to the other horror games like Outlast or even some of them Resident Evil games, Ghostwire Tokyo doesn't really compare. Bethesda and the Tango Gameworks have come together to create an excellent example of the modern single-player open-world action RPG Ghostwire Tokyo. It's dripping with the style and substance, but if anything else starts dripping, that could be because your house is haunted now. There is no lot to talk about with the game, so let's jump right in. Something that can easily make or break the video game that focuses on exploring an open world or at least immersing the player in a specific environment is how that looks. Ghostwire Tokyo knocks this section of the park. Wandering the dark streets of Tokyo with no other people around not only gives the game its overall creepy tone, but also has a hauntingly beautiful aesthetics. Multicolored lights splash across the city, selling random products to no one, and the airy ambience of raindrops and music left on restaurants or clubs making explosion this game so much more immersive. The only things that feel out of place are the things that should, like the wandering spirits known as visitors that resemble actual humans in nearly even way. Young schoolgirls stand in a circle and dance or chat. Then you take a closer look, you realize they are headless. Then they are well-dressed umbrella-toting gentlemen can be discovered pushing the buttons at the ATM or looking in the window of a shop if they are trying to understand what is about things to humans are interested in. This closeness to reality combined with such a stark detachment from it gives the game an impressively subtle creepiness. Every detail in game seems very throughout and carefully considered. Nearly even the corner of the game at least has a small detail tucked away waiting to be discovered. For example, I climbed to the top of the building I need to go that way for the story, only to realize it was the building next door. But when I got to the top, I found empty closets next to a lunchbox and a herd element, which immediately told the story of a construction worker enjoying lunch alone on top of the building when disaster struck. There was no reason for me to be on top of that building, no expectation for me to find the small detail, but it was nevertheless. Visually, Ghostwire Tokyo is delight. The graphics feel appropriate of modern games should strive for, and it's clear that a lot of extra effort went into the game style and aesthetics, which elevates the entire experience. It's also worth noting that while many open world games can fill the space with so much interactable content as possible, Ghostwire Tokyo never feels that way. There is a space to breathe between the encounters, and the list of the collectibles doesn't feel insummable, meaning that it's easy and enjoyable to take this game at your own pace whenever wandering aimlessly chasing the main story or finding absolutely everything there is to find. Ghostwire Tokyo thankfully is just about exploring a creepy, deserted Tokyo. The visitors, those responsible for the mass disappearance, will put up the fight. The protagonist Akito is on the mission to save his hospital sister from those that orchestrate the disaster, and the spirit of the supernatural detective Kiki helps you out by shaking Akito's body and lending his supernatural powers. Kiki gives Akito the access to an ability called Eternal Weaving. which includes 3 types of ranged attacks and a shield. To fend off the attacking visitors, Akito utilizes wind, water and the fire attacks that all damage in different ways. The controls for the game are generally very solid and intuitive for anyone familiar with the action games, but the shield is automatically mapped to tapping the mouse wheel, which can feel awkward when trying to swap between that and firing elemental blast in combat. Landing hits will eventually reveal the visitor's spirit core, essentially their heart, which Akito can then rip from the body to destroy the visitor. One-on-one, this is easy to take down the visitors, but take too many at once and they can be overwhelm you. This adds a fun stealth element to the combat, where the player does their best to take out as many enemies as possible before actively engaging in the combat. Every enemy also has origins in Japanese culture, mythology and urban legend, giving even the weakest enemies context in the meaning. Not only is there a satisfying deep to exploration in Ghostwire Tokyo, but is a lot to learn the game and Japanese culture, particularly the paranormal. Yokai such as the crew like Tengu help Akito grapple to higher places, and the Kappa can be found messaging with the stray human spirits. Meanwhile, the clever Tanuki hide in plain sight, transformed into the various objects, acting as collectibles, not unlike the Korokos in the Legends of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. What separates Ghostwire Tokyo from the other Bethesda games, it's like Skyrim or Fallout 4, is the story. There is much more of emphasis on the linear story progression in this game. That is, some other open world titles following the story does open the world further and unlock the abilities, but there is a limit on what can be accomplished without it keeping a tab on the story progression. The story is not too bad, but full of mystery and action, but it will depend on what kind of experience the player prefers. Some players will enjoy following the story, while others will prefer to wander around Tokyo and find the secrets there are to find. While both can distract from each other, they both also encourage the other. Wandering to find secrets of prepares that people are challenged for the story offices, and the story gives the player ample motivation to explore and help to our lost spirits scattered around the city. Plus, there are plenty of great short stories to discover in many of game's side missions. So the verdict: it's fun to short the gust, they are said it. It's certainly not the most challenging game, but it does feel very good to pull out the stops against terrifying sister wilding spirit and ultimately pull the heart out of the crush it. It's almost cathartic to stare these horrors in the face and you have the strength to destroy them. Don't just take my word for it, trust is talented creators that work on this game. Shinji Mikami, co-creator of the Resident Evil series, serves as executive director of Ghostwire Tokyo, alongside Shichiro Hara, who worked specifically on the combat of 2016 Doom. Ikumi Nakamura, known for Okami and the original Bayonetta, served as creative director during the initial development of Ghostwire Tokyo, but unfortunately had to step back midway through the development. With this amount of the talents, it's hard not to make a good game, obviously. So, Ghostwire Tokyo brings elements of the action RPG, a horror game, and an open world game together with the brilliant results in an industry so often dominated by franchise and well-known series. It's exciting to see an original and unique AAA project shine through. If you've been looking for something new and fun to dive into, look no further, go and play.